Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tetsuya Nomoto from Mitsubishi Research Institute. I'll be your host and moderator today. We are pleased to welcome you to today's seminar, Strategic Approach to Strengthen Supply Chain, Enhancing the Competitiveness Through Regional Collaboration and Circular Economy, hosted by Mitsubishi Research Institute. This webinar will explore how ASEAN collaboration and circular economy practice can turn today's resource challenge into tomorrow's competitive advantage. We are honored to have distinguished experts with us who will share their insight and experience. We also encourage all of you to actively take part in the discussion by submitting your question. For your convenience, simultaneous interpretation from English into Japanese is available. You can switch the audio channel anytime using the button at your screen. You may also use the chat function to post questions or to check announcements from the Secretariat. Questions can be submitted at any time during the seminar. Simply click the chat icon at the bottom of the screen, type your message, and press enter. Your question will be received by the moderator and shared with the panelists. Please feel free to send them at any time. As for today's program, following the opening remarks and keynote address from the organizer, we will begin with 4 presentations. After that, we will proceed to a 60-minute panel discussion. Now, to officially open the seminar, I would like to invite Ms. TAKEDA Yoko, Executive Officer and Research Fellow of Mitsubishi Research Institute, to deliver the opening remark. Ms. TAKEDA, the screen is yours.
Hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Takeda from the Mitsubishi Research Institute. Thank you very much for joining us today, despite your busy schedule. And also, I'd like to extend my great appreciation to those who support our activities and initiatives. MRI as trying to realize the very rich and fulfilled society, and we are conducting the researches and proposals in various fields. And then one of such fields is circular economy realization. The realization of circular economy actually has several challenges. One is that the economic feasibility, but we are seeing that the changes in the tide. So with the long-term perspective, as well as that business performance acceleration. And that there are many corporations who are trying to incorporate their circular economy, which is contributing to the realization of that sustainable world and sustainable society. And today, for this very important turn of the time, we'd like to share the thoughts with you and then use it as an opportunity to think about our future together and the potential for the future. And today's approach is a strategic approach to strengthen supply chains, enhancing the competitiveness through the regional collaboration and circular economy. As you are all aware, the security, safety, resource security, and then the corporate supply chain, and then the landscapes are rapidly changing, and then there is that trend that has implemented some restriction in the export of all that critical material and resources, as well as the use for the products, and this is hosting the cooperation to cope with such changes with the robust and resilience, as well as posing the new business opportunities. And then today we would like to discuss about the collaboration between Japan, Europe, and Asia ASEAN countries, as well as learning from that the state-of-art circular economy model in Europe and the United States. So for a deepened understanding for that, the political policy innovations. And then now we invited speakers from the distinguished speakers, and they are sharing us their insights based on their experiences. And I hope that there will be a great opportunity for you. And thank you once again for joining us today.
Next, we will have the keynote speech presented by Mr. Jiro FURUKI, Research Director at Center for the Policy and the Economy, Mitsubishi Research Institute. The title is Japan, ASEAN Circular Flows and Demand-Oriented Policy and Market Design. Mr. FURUKI, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jiro FURUKI from Center for Policy and Economy at Mitsubishi Research Institute. It is a great honor to speak at today's webinar. Today, I will talk about building cooperation between Japan and ASEAN in the circular economy. In particular, I will focus on market creation and development of sustainable value chains. Let me begin with the first slide. ASEAN is already recognized as a global hub for manufacturing and for processing waste that crosses borders. Every year, large volumes of plastics, metals, and end-of-life products are shipped here for treatment and recycling. But ASEAN is no longer only a receiver of waste from outside. Economic growth in the region is accelerating domestic consumption of electronics, and e-waste volumes are now increasing at double-digit rates in several member states. So, ASEAN faced a dual challenge: to remain a reliable part of global waste processing while also managing its own rapidly growing domestic e-waste. This makes the region's experience and policies highly relevant for the global debate on circular economy. In today's global economy, supply risks are becoming more pronounced. Price volatility in critical materials and growing use of export regulations are creating uncertainty and instability for companies that depend on global supply chains. In response, firms are rethinking their strategies. Instead of relying on traditional linear supply models, we are seeing a gradual but steady shift towards service-based models and circular economy practices. These approaches emphasize sustainability and ongoing support, such as product life extension, reuse, repair, remanufacturing, and recycling. In other words, the supply chain is no longer just about securing raw materials, but about building resilience through circularity and service innovation. This slide introduced two key levers in the transition to a circular economy: and closed flow and slow. Please look at the part shown in red in this figure. Closed flow means recycling materials back into production loops, while slow refers to extending product lifetimes through repair, reuse, and more durable design. To make this transformation effective, manufacturing must adapt their business models. Rather than focusing only on throughput and volume, these industries need to embrace circular practices that prioritize resource efficiency, durability, and long-term value creation. In short, transforming manufacturing into CE-driven business models is central to accelerating the overall circular economy transition. With the expansion of precious metals, recycled materials are generally more costly than virgin inputs. However, when potential costs are incorporated, the cost advantage may shift in favor of recycled materials. That's why it is important to consider hidden costs, disposal costs, carbon costs, and rising raw material costs in our calculations. By doing so, recycled materials are no longer just more expensive, but often the smarter option for long-term competitiveness and sustainability. Here, I would like to introduce J-Plan's unique PET chemical recycling technology. It purifies PET at the molecular level, removing unwanted materials and restoring it to petroleum equivalent quality. This means PET can be recycled repeatedly without quality loss, offering a practical pathway toward true circularity in plastics. Here is another good practice. JX Advanced Metals has launched 2 types of 100 recycled copper under the mass balance method. On this figure, the circle on the right shows PCL 100/MB, which links recycled copper directly back to the customer through a validated chain of custody. The circle on the left shows MR 100/MB, which also delivers 100% recycled copper, but without origin linkage. Both schemes ensure certified and reliable supply of recycled copper to the market, showing how mass balance approaches can accelerate circularity in metals. Japan's technologies are variable, but their impact grows when linked with ASEAN's supply capacity. The key lies in connecting Japan's demand with ASEAN's supply capacity by creating stable demand in Japan and enhancing supply predictability in ASEAN. Both sides can move toward a mutually beneficial resource cycle. In this way, Japan's domestic demand becomes the engine that drives shared sustainability and growth across the region. Circular collaboration with Japan is already opening up 3 emerging growth market areas. First, in collection, dismantling, and proper disposal, we are beginning to see policy-level support from Japan extended to ASEAN partners, helping to lay the groundwork for reliable systems. Second, in domestic resource loops, some Japanese companies have already started activities on the ground in ASEAN market, pointing to new possibilities for local recycle businesses. And third, In refurbishment and remanufacturing, there is growing potential for new business models, where not only local manufacturers, but also local distributors can engage once certified, creating new opportunities within local markets. Taken together, these developments suggest how circular value chains can evolve into shared growth markets between Japan and ASEAN. In the end, competitiveness will be defined by how we manage resources. Manufacturing is already shifting, facing raw material risks and moving from products to services. And these shifts are opening real growth markets in the circular economy. Japan and ASEAN are deeply connected in these value chains, and the opportunity before us is shared. Now is the time to act together and turn the circular economy into our engine for sustainable growth. Thank you very much.
Now let us move on to the next presentation. So present is Ms. Wen-Yu Weng, Executive Leader for Critical Mineral at MacArthur Foundation. The title is From Pack to Power, the Promised ASEAN-Japan Circular Loop for E-Mobility and Clean Power. Is Ms. Wen-Yu, screen is yours.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. First and foremost, I would like to thank MII for the invitation for the organization of this excellent event. And also thank you to the previous speakers for the opening address and the keynote speech, which I think set us up well for the presentations and conversations to come. So just a little bit about myself and the organization. My name is Wen-Yu Weng. I am the executive lead of critical minerals at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. In my role, I look at why circularity in critical minerals is a game changer for the energy transition globally. In this conversation, I'll go into a little bit of detail about Japan and ASEAN specifically. For us, circularity is not about only solving problems. It is fundamentally also about unlocking opportunity, sharing prosperity, building new business models and value chains, all the while cutting reliance on supply chains that may be less resilient. Bearing in mind there's only 10 minutes, I think this is a topic that I am very happy to talk about for much, much longer. So there's going to be a limited level of depth in this, and I'm sure a lot of my excellent panelists will also have the time to go over in greater detail some of the research and technology element, the economic and trade aspects, the policy and governance aspects. So I will focus my presentation a bit more higher level on some of the reasoning of having importance of circularity central to this conversation, and also why it's a really important opportunity for ASEAN and Japan to seize. So a little bit about the foundation very quickly, but we have spent 15 years on driving a circular economy through design, policy, and market innovation worldwide. We think of ourselves as putting not only the sustainability case and the societal case, but also the economic and business case first. And in our work, we look at circular economy today through three main areas. First is critical minerals, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, and the role critical minerals and its circularity play in the energy transition, and the relevance to Japan and ASEAN. The second area we look at is plastics and packaging, which we won't touch on today, of course, and the last area is on retail. So why is it important that we talk about this conversation now? With the clean energy and mobility, e-mobility boom, you are seeing an explosive demand globally for critical minerals, whether it is you're looking at lithium, nickel, cobalt, rare earth, copper, and more. I'm sure this comes as no surprise to a lot of people on this call, as you would be familiar with this conversation. And if we as a society continue with business as usual mindsets and methodologies towards mining, towards refining and use, as we have done in the linear economy, we will face not only serious environmental and societal impacts, but we face inevitable shortages. We know that the demand for several critical minerals that are central to the energy transition is on track to outstrip supply by mid-2030s. And we know that means this crunch is no longer a distant worry. It is a near-term reality that can stall energy transition even ahead of mid-2030s because of the inevitable fragility that it is going to create to supply chains. Many nations, including many of those in ASEAN, rely on these key imports for minerals. That poses a lot of economic security risk. At the same time, the message is very clear. The energy transition must continue. We must decarbonize power. We must decarbonize transport. And therefore, we know that simply approaching this problem and thinking of mining more, refining more, is not enough and will not buy us enough time. So from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's perspective, we have to reduce demand through circular strategies. We have to get more value out of what we already have. We have to compound the returns of the minerals already in circulation. And we also know that this is not just a problem, it's also an opportunity, because we are coming to the end of the lifetime for the first wave of EV batteries in our cars, for the first wave of large wind turbines, and the first wave of large-scale electronics and solar panels. And that presents an opportunity, whether or not we see this as a waste crisis or a resource opportunity, that depends on what we do next. And so we're quite realistic. The goal is not to replace mining overnight, but the goal is to increase the role that secondary and recycled supply can play, and to view the issue as one of not only recycling, but fundamentally redesigning products, redesigning business models, redesigning policy rules in our society, and redesigning the overall economic system. I understand this may all sound pretty abstract, but it is the kind of questions that we contend with every day at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And in many of the other areas that we have worked in, we have already demonstrated, for example, through plastics, that it is possible to be ambitious, that it is possible to have these conversations, not just around how do we redesign products and components, but how do we redesign the economic and political system. The keynote speech earlier talked about how our economic system permits linear economy to have many, many hidden costs that we don't see. And once you are able to surface that cost, once you're able to price in externalities, there is actually extremely cost competitiveness case for a circular economy over a linear economy. And that comes down to redesigning the rule and redesigning the economic system. One other thing I also want to drive point here before I talk a little bit more about Japan and ASEAN from our perspective is you would have heard circular economy from many different perspectives. The sustainability rationale. Maybe these days, especially if you are engaged in some of the European conversations, the geopolitical and supply chain risk rationale. And as I mentioned, you will also hear about business opportunities. These are all very important and necessarily included as part of this conversation. But the really important part is to remember that regardless of geopolitical risk, that regardless of environmental social impact, if you look at what I'm showing here on the screen, the reality is we will have a supply and demand gap, full stop. And countries in the European Union, for example, can talk about strategies like reshoring and friendshoring, but that will not be enough. So this is not just a problem of sustainability, of business opportunity, of geopolitics. Circularity is a conversation of necessity. So why is it that we think there is a significant conversation to be had today about Japan and ASEAN? And I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more from all the different perspectives of the panelists later. But I think it's worthwhile just taking a step back and remembering that for decades, Japan has invested in ASEAN's manufacturing infrastructure. This is another natural extension to expand this collaboration and this legacy into collaborations on circular loops. ASEAN is also not just a sizable economic market, of course it is, but it's also important to remember that it is one of the most advanced regional blocs in the world, probably second only to the European Union in terms of institutionalization, in terms of coordination. It is an economic power with 680 million people approximately, and an extremely robust GDP of over 3 trillion, approaching 4 trillion US dollars. And as a bloc, is the world's 5th largest economy. The ability to scale issues that matter, the ability to coordinate mechanisms as one, means that ASEAN is a favorable and trusted trading power. And we can already see that when it comes to circularity, Japan and ASEAN governments are making significant steps in pushing into this direction. If you look at Japan's green transformation strategy, the idea of pricing carbon will make, amongst many other things, circular and secondary supplies more attractive. ASEAN has made very, very initial first steps towards talking about circular economy. The framework of circular economy in 2021 is a very good starting point. And many countries have started to implement an extended producer responsibility scheme for products. A lot of these products are at smaller scale. They are not comparable to some of the larger infrastructure or larger products that we're looking at in the energy transition, but it's an immensely positive start. And so in short, both Japan and ASEAN has signaled that circular economy is undoubtedly part of the growth agenda. And stronger alignment will accelerate what is possible for joint initiatives on this fertile ground. And thanks to trade agreements like RCEP and the ASEAN-Japan CEP, this region has favorable conditions in terms of tariffs and frameworks for cross-border partnership. And I think this favorable trade architecture is often underplayed and could be significantly leveraged to move recycled or circular components across border much more efficiently. And so this is a tremendous opportunity. If ASEAN and Japan can seize this moment, it will not just be about mitigating risk, it will be fundamentally about creating a new competitive advantage. And if you look at some of the conversations happening in Europe or China, you also have the ability to work together to look into the requirements to gain market access to these regions that often see ASEAN and Japan as friendshoring opportunities. I'm not going to talk about this slide too much, but oftentimes for us, as you can see here on the right-hand side, circular economy for us is not just about recycling, and it's not just about redesigning products. It is also fundamentally about having new conversations around business models and having new conversation about our economic and policy systems. And as part of that, we can talk about redesigning products, of course, we can talk about recycling, of course, but there are many other levers that we can be talking about as well. I highlight some of these on the screen here, and you're going to, I'm sure, hear some of the examples of this from my other fellow expert panelists. But if you look at some of the stuff that we said here, going beyond high yield recycling and opportunities there are many other levers we can pull in ASEAN and Japan as part of leveraging the circular economy opportunity. For example, if you look at innovative business models at the bottom, we can shift a lot of incentives by just shifting our mindset from selling products to selling services. If you look at batteries as a service, for example, in the EV space or battery swapping, these leasing and new business models ensures that battery manufacturers retain ownership. This incentivizes them to design for longevity, to manage for longevity, and to take products back for reuse and recycling. So there's a lot of innovative business models, and battery as a service, for example, is just one of them. There's a lot also that can be done from the very upstream stages of design. When you design batteries and motors and electronics, making them easy to disassemble, making them easy to repair, making them easy to swap and to be upgraded, means that you have more modular design, standardized components, and more capable products that are able to be used for a longer time, or the use case can use these products for a longer time. So modularity, recyclability, and durability by design are all game changers. There are other things I mentioned here as well, some of which have tremendous impact and opportunity and potential in ASEAN. For example, second life applications. An EV battery that is no longer fit for purpose in the EV can still be very much attractive in second life applications, for example, in buildings and grid. And there is a tremendous requirement for that for the ASEAN grid, for example, ASEAN grids plural. So there is a lot of opportunities here. I would just like to end with some hypothesis. And so, like I mentioned, it's only a 10 minutes conversation here, and we'll have a longer conversation later. But there are tremendous opportunities for collaboration. We can look at the progress that's being made, in particular in Europe, for digital product passports. Well, what could a Japan-ASEAN pilot on digital passports look like? who would that include? And how can we feed and streamline that into the conversations in Europe? I think that would be tremendously exciting. And secondly, the conversation about cross-border green corridors. Are there specific trade routes or trade agreements or topical areas where we can pilot to accelerate and standardize circular practices and components in critical minerals for energy transition? And what would that look like? And finally, it's important to remember the power of market coalitions. So with buyers clubs that could be possible through regional single markets or coordinated markets in the case of ASEAN, what would demand coalitions look like? And how could a leading coalition of, let's say, companies or organizations in Japan and ASEAN that commit to advanced purchasing agreement for circular products really drive the first infrastructural and policy investments in these issues? So I think there are tremendous areas of collaboration, and there's a lot that could be learned, for example, from a European context. And I would love to explore further these conversations with anyone in the audience. A bit over time. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wen-Yu. So let's move on to the next presenter. It's Mr. Iwasaki Fusanori, Research Fellow, Research Department, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, ERIA. The title is the ASEAN Circular Economy Effort. So Mr. Fusanori, the screen is yours.
Yes, thank you very much for your kind introduction. Again, my name is Iwasaki. I'm a research fellow in ERIA, Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, located in Indonesia, Jakarta. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a very, very important conference here today. So I'd like to, today, I'd like to talk about, based on my some findings through the research project, which was previously conducted in ERIA, my organization. So let me start to introduce the basic overview for the ASEAN economy. As you may familiar about the situation. So already some previous speaker has already mentioned, ASEAN now is experience, unlike in Japan, unfortunately, is a robust economic growth and population growth as well. So this implies that the number of the automotive sales, as well as the end-of-life vehicles, and also that the electrical and electric equipments, we call the used waste electrical and electronic equipments, so we call the e-waste, is expected to continue rising significantly in the coming couple of years. So this chart also shows the trend of the ASEAN's automotive sales. Roughly 10 years ago, Indonesia and Thailand, each of them achieved the sales of 1 million vehicles in a year. Unlike in Japan, vehicles in ASEAN are often regarded as an asset for owners, meaning that it is not uncommon for them to be used for nearly 20 years or 30 years. So even assuming a 20 years lifespan, we must anticipate that the significant volume of end-of-life vehicle will emerge at least from Indonesia and Thailand within the next 5 years. And the other countries such as the Philippines, Malaysia, Philippines, and Vietnam, they are also experiencing a dramatic growth of the sales in before and after the COVID-19 pandemics. So compared to two countries like Thailand and Indonesia, so their timing of the dramatic growth is a bit delayed, around 10 years, but soon after 10 or 15 years, they will also experience some massive amount of the end-of-life vehicle. So the question is, who will take care of it? This is a very important topic we should consider from now on. And as you may know, that the infrastructure required to handle this substantial volume of waste, including the automotive end-of-life as well as the e-waste, is extremely fragile in ASEAN region. Within the ASEAN, dismantling operations are still predominantly carried out by individuals within what is termed the informal sector. So these individuals earn their livelihood or the living so-called money by extracting and reselling the reusable parts and components. However, their career carries the potential to directly cause the negative externalities, such as the environmental problems and the health hazardous issue, such as not properly disposing of the CFC and also the waste oils. And the third is that, so it also, excuse me, this is furthermore, this is due to the insufficient infrastructure and equipments, as I already mentioned, the lack of the necessary legal regulation, and also the increasing cost for the proper dismantling. It is frequently observed that many dismantlers in the region neglect the management of hazardous chemical during their dismantling process. So it may cause some environment and human health issues. So you can see the pictures. This is a photograph vividly illustrate the situation, what I said. So you can see the plastic components being burned and melting to extract the copper wire, melt copper wire's metal part. The melted plastic is flowing onto the ground. Unfortunately, such things are frequently observed across the ASEAN region. So, under such a unfortunate situation, but some good practices are nowadays emerging. So from now on, I'd like to discuss that what could serve as an enabler for proper dismantling and treatment in this context. Of course, imposing appropriate regulation is essential. This could involve regulating informal sectors' activities, or in the case of automotive industry, automotive and end-of-life vehicles. So we should consider regulating the vehicle owners to prevent excessive use of older cars. Because sometimes the older cars emit a lot of the emission gases, and it compared to the newer car. And it may cause not only the environmental issue, but not only the so-called health issue, as well as it may cause some massive CO2 emissions. So it may cause the climate change issue as well. And also that regulating the maximum usage of age for vehicles as well as some equipments, electric and electrical equipments. This could also somehow the possible regulation. However, while such a regulation is crucial, merely introducing them may not always be effective, unfortunately. For instance, informal operators previously operating near the city or urban areas have been observed relocating to the rural areas and still continue their businesses. So Another approach we should consider is to provide some incentive for operators to be formalized. Today, I hope to share some insight that might offer hints in this regard. The third factor is a change in the market environment. For automotive, electrification is a prime example. The battery component becomes critically important, and the discussion around the battery recycling and the traceability could potentially drive the formalization of the dismantlers. Furthermore, in the context of the e-waste, consideration like information security or cybersecurity issue, separate from the environment concern, could provide an incentive to engage formal operators. I shall now discuss several good practices from the Malaysian case of the automotive. So, one challenge for the formal automotive dismantler is the difficulty in sourcing vehicle for dismantling. Informal operators can purchase ELVs at higher price because they do not bear the cost of the environment or health hazardous countermeasures. From the consumer perspective, selling to the highest bidder is a market principle. Malaysia automotive dismantling case involves the authorized automotive treatment facility we call the AATF system. Companies certified under the AATF scheme can reduce acquisition cost for vehicles for dismantling. For instance, by receiving priority access to accidented damaged vehicle from insurance company. So this is a scheme by Malaysian government. So this is the picture. That's the one authorized facilities activities. They also installed some big, larger machine to optimize their dismantling process. And this is the Philippine case. They also has, thanks to the support from the Japanese government and the JICA, authorized dismantling operator have commenced operation this year. This company strived to secure the necessary volume for viable operation by securing large-scale contract with local taxi companies. In both cases, operating as a business enabler, that's the introduction of large-scale machinery, leading to reduced unit cost. So next is the e-waste case. Here's printed circuit boards, PCB, are dismantled, extracting the small quantities of the metal from numerous sources to ultimately form metal ingots. Challenges persist, such as the difficulties in sourcing high-quality PCBs locally. So let me summarize the following good practices are emerging although the small number in ASEAN. First, for the automotive dismantler licensing system, benefit from receiving accident-damaged vehicles supplied by insurance company. Furthermore, by contracting with the commercial vehicle companies like a taxi and trucks to receive a fixed quantity of ELV on a regular basis, the sustainability of the business is ensured. Additionally, electric vehicles, due to their different vehicle platform, are becoming difficult for informal operators nowadays to handle, meaning only formal operator can manage them. Regarding electric waste, there is a view that information security management, ISO 27001, is more critical than environmental management for the business, for the big companies located in ASEAN. This is also the same situation in globally, I guess, but this is because for the company disposing of the equipment like a PC, personal computers, The crucial factor is ensuring the data within data itself is accurately erased. And also that some operator is considering the refurbishing and also the remanufacturing activities to get the longer term of a contract with a company. So it is not only considering the dismantling, but also some computers maintenance services. So to combine some maintenance service as well as the proper dismantling. So then the company I visited explained to me that it may, of course, it may secure some information as well as the environment and also reduce the CO2 emission. So let me conclude. Abundant informal sector activities are still ongoing in Southeast Asia, but some good practices for formal dismantler is nowadays emerging, but still struggle to compete with informal businesses in terms of the price and flexibility. Some good business practices are emerging to make value added in various ways, not only to expand to the other services I already explained. The lack of proper dismantlers. This is a very, very important point. We need to consider difficulties for companies, in particular foreign affiliated companies, such as from Japan, to rely on the informal dismantler. So we cannot rely on the informal sector. So then the abundant proper dismantler should be necessary for the business continuity in ASEAN. So provide a longer term service, not only dismantling, but the maintenance service would be a key to penetrate formal businesses. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fusanori. So next is the third presenter. It's Dr. Witchuda Daud. He's a researcher, National Metal and Materials Technology Center, MTEC, National Science and Technology Development Agency, NSTDA. The title is Promoting Circular Economy Design for Sustainable Resource Utilization, Industry Engagement and Transition. So Dr. Witchuda, screen is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me well. First of all, I thank you for this opportunity. And I think I'm the last presentations before we go into the discussion. And I don't want to keep you from the discussion because for me, I also write down so many points that want to be discussed with my fellow panelists. But first of all, introduce myself. I'm Witchuda Daud from MTEC, and I'm a material scientist by professions. But today I will show you with the activities we have done as one of the national research centers in Thailand, that how we promote circular economy design, and especially how we engage with the industry through these transitions. Okay, I introduce a little bit about MTEC. We stand for National Metals and Materials Technology Centers. We are institutes for materials and manufacturing research and development, and our mission is to develop innovative materials and manufacturing technology to enhance industrial competitiveness. But beyond that, we also foster circular economy innovations to support Thailand's sustainable development. We do this through three main roles. We provide advancing innovations and collaborating with industry and building capacity through the training and knowledge sharing. Without having to be redundant, because my panelists has already mentioned this, I think you already have in your heart that in order for us to transfer from linear economy to circular economy, we require to have system thinking. So the key is that to design with circularity in mind right from the start in order to realize the potential of the circular economy business model. Actually, we have already sharing on this of different business model. And I totally agree with Ms. Wen-Yu when you mentioned that it's not only just the design, and also have to include this the new paradigm, new mindset on the business model as well. And these are the things that actually together with these models that we can create new opportunities for the growth while reducing waste. And yes, we actually, because from R&D, we love also with the design and new stuff, but at the same time, we used to design and then just have it the most function we want, and we did not think about what happened at the end of life. But to make it circular is also go back to the design as well. But the design is not just to design it for having just a function, but you need to, in circular economy, it need to fit, align with the specific standards and infrastructure and the context of the market. And I think you will recognize these 7 groups of products that I think currently undergo transformations under the new design directives. Especially we have heard a lot in EU. In Thailand, we just has the Thailand EU workshop on the ESPR and then PPWR. So it's actually in everybody's mind, and then the industry is already hyped up on this one. Yeah. So to make this work, products need to remember that the recycling is also not free. So we don't design for recycling only. It takes energy, and it often material losses the value, and it probably becoming down cycle instead of being able to use in a multiple reuse or recycling terms. So design state is very powerful because it determines the total environmental impacts of the solutions. When we talk about design, we're not only talking about we just put the part A and part B together, but we are talking about finding the right solutions, which means that we have to think about how to extend the life cycle. We have to combine both making the products and with the service as well. So to look it in the Thailand perspective, and I think these also share with a lot of ASEAN countries, of our neighbors, our Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam as well, is that we are actually called midstream centrics and compliance driven industry. In ASEAN, we don't have many of the raw materials producers. We probably around here make a lot of polymer, papers, and rubbers in these regions, but we have to heavily rely on virgin materials, virgin raw materials such as metals and chemicals and rare earths and minerals. So that shows how fragile it is, how we have to depend on the import. But at the same time, because we also, many of our countries are agricultural based, so we also have potential to localize some circular feedstock, the bio-based feedstocks. And even though it's not fragmented, we also have a very, in ASEAN, we also have a very big end of life sectors, albeit that it's fragmented and not very well organized, but it's also have the ability to transform to become the formal secondary material provider. From what we have seen, we go into the field, they still feel that they are farmer and workers on their free time. They do dismantling, they do plastic recycling and that. So I think it's very important to empower them, because they are the part of this also. To complete the loop, you need to empower this part, and we have a lot in these regions of informal and operators, and as well as if they are educated, that's just the opportunity that these can provide the feedstock to upstream, and that to reduce the dependence on all the virgin materials. And as I mentioned earlier, we are midstreams. centric, and our industry comprised of a lot of large clusters of parts and module producers, from automotives to electrical appliance. I think Japan has also many like own OEM dominated in these regions as well. But even though it's this midstream, but they are very driven by to comply with the global context, even though it's so cost burden for them, but for them to make it in the business, they also have this drive to change. And with the large scales of the group of sectors that we have, it could be a leverage also to have the systematic transformations if it's well coordinated. And what we do as MTEC is that actually we connecting to our stakeholder and actors in the value network. We have different roles to different stakeholders. Through the policymaker, we data and technical support, as well as consultation and policy recommendations. To local producer, we empower them with business model innovations and also all data support in technical decision making. So actually, I want to focusing or like emphasis on these activities that we have done in the past 4 or 5 years is that we have not only do the theory and then give the lectures only, but we offer through seminar, workshops, and hand-on challenge is the better way for people to do the real practice of transform themselves into using the circular economy principles. We have actually been supported by the Ministry of Industry here in Thailand for over 4 years now to conduct the projects on design for circular economy. And actually, the main activity is that we actually accepted the applications from companies all over the countries that they have the CE design solutions they want to develop, they want to study. And we select them to receive the in-depth consultations. We have groomed them and also support them with developing the real prototypes. Prototypes, not only the product prototypes, but even also the prototype with the ecosystem. We also bring in the stakeholder or supply chains to work together on the solutions. And through this solution, we actually have learned together with also the companies, the hand-on implementations and what are the obstacles. And surprisingly, we have already done continuously for 4 years. Maybe next year also another session we will have. We have done already 24 solutions with more than 22 companies. And from what we learned from the activities that we have is that in order to make this transition or help them, the data is the key for this change. A lot of companies come with data that they have, but don't know how to use it, or without the data that is meaningful. So when we first have them in the sessions, we would sit them down and teach them how to do the resource inflow, outflow, do the system in focus, for them to be able to pinpoint what are the circularity indicator you want to monitor. You want to see the change when you change, when you give the solutions into your company design. So these are some of the cases we have done. You see that it's ranging from furniture manufacturer to the food company, a lot of plastic, yes, and we even have the network and partnership that we have tried with the solutions, and they have gone forward to also make together the solution for the flexible packagings and so on. This year we also have a big manufacturing company doing the transformer. People start to change from coming to us with only recycling problems to we want to do remanufacturing, we want to do refurbishing. What do we need to do, what we have to offer, and how is the business model and the price structure point would be different if we offer these solutions. So we see the change in the company, and we see that it's only true that they have done it by themselves, and that they don't think of it that this is only quick fix inside the company only, but they're becoming advocacy, and they are doing the structural transformation inside their company, and also to their supplier, to their value chain as well. So we also, at here, we want to also encourage them to also follow the E principles from the ISO 59004 as their guidance of the roadmap for well-directed transitions. After they finish maybe 4 or 6 months with us, they still continue on and be able to have the business model or make the products in the circular design, and that we also kind of like measure with what carbon footprint, life cycle analysis, and we see what is prospect the economic gain that they could receive from that. And I think the key takeaway message that we have also from the activities we have done, and I think with try to moving toward the circular economy, is that business as usual is no longer enough. And I think that's emphasis what when you have just present as well. And it's full of surprises. A lot of company coming with what they think this is CE, but at the end of the 6-month period with us, then it's completely changed to the not the solutions. And this actually required that they have to look beyond the constraint of the linear model that they always thinking about only end of waste, and they want to turn the waste into something. But we ask them to look at it in the more systematic thinking in the long term. So, but to conclude, I think circular economy still have to begin with the design, and then when we decide products, processes, and a business model that extend resource use and create long-term value, we create impact that lasts. And at MTEC, we are committed to support industry in this journey. And thank you very much. And I look forward for your questions and the discussion we will have later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Witchuda. So last but not least, the next presenter is Mr. Koji Takahashi, Director for International Resource Circulation, Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy Division, GX Policy Group, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, METI, Japan. The title is an overview of circular economy policy. So, Mr. Koji, screen is yours.
Hello, everyone. And I'm Koji Takahashi, Director for International Affairs in Resource Efficiency and the Circular Economy Division of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, Japan. At the beginning, I'd like to express my gratitude to the MLI, host of this seminar, for giving me this opportunity of presentation. And today, time is a little limited, but I will provide an overview of circular economy policy, which is currently promoted by METI. First, I'd like to briefly introduce the organizational structure of METI to you. METI is responsible for various policies targeting industrial sector, such as manufacturing, ICT, and services. And concretely, we are implementing various policies to support industrial activities, including facilitation of trade and technology, and the measures for SME, small and medium-sized enterprises. As a part of our policies, we are promoting green transformation and GX within the industrial sector. So my division, the Resource Efficiency and the Circular Economy Division that I'm belonging, is placed within the GX group. Recognizing the importance of GX, this GX group was newly established in July last year, and it has been expanded in both personnel and organizational structure. And this page outlines progress of the measures for circular economy implemented until now. In 1999, METI formulated the circular economy vision in 1999. Since quite a tight final disposal site for waste had become serious societal challenges at that time, we facilitate the shift in policy focus from 1R recycle to strengthening measures encompassing 3R, reduce, reuse, and recycling. Subsequently, global economic and societal changes brought you to light several issues, such as heightened resource constraints and risks, waste problems stemming mainly from expanding consumption in developing countries, and the environmental challenges like global warming and marine plastic pollution. In response to these challenges, we recognize the need to shift our policy perspectives beyond merely proper waste disposal and away from the linear economy premised on mass consumption and production and disposal. As a result of shift of these policy perspectives, we finally formulated the Circular Economy Vision 2020. This vision aimed to advance transition from the 3R approach previously pursued as environmental activities to a circular economy as a part of economic activities, and thereby promoting voluntary initiatives in the private sector. By this page, I'd like to explain Japan's legal frameworks for facilitation of the circular economy. Firstly, we have the Basic Act on establishing a sound market cycle society, which establishes fundamental principles for forming a circular-oriented society. And in addition, we have other relevant laws has also been enacted to address specific issues and challenges. For example, we have the Act on the Waste Management of Public Cleansing to promote proper waste disposal. And we have 3R Act as a basic act for implementation of the 3R, reduce, reuse, recycling. And we have another act focusing on individual products to promote recycling. You can find some products in the middle of the sheet, home appliances and the car and the construction materials and foods and others. And we have the act on the focusing on the plastics as a material to advance resource circulation. And this page summarizes our awareness of issues and driving our efforts to establish a growth-oriented resource autonomous economy. And we believe that we are facing 3 major challenges now. Now, first is issues of resource constraints and risks. While global material demand is expected to increase in the future, and the volume of supply will be limited. In addition, concentrated supply of certain resources by a few countries, combined with Japan's low self-sufficient rate of resources among developed countries, raise procurement risks. The second is environmental constraints. Waste disposal is increasingly difficult. And from the perspective of achieving carbon neutrality, the use of recycled materials with low CO2 emissions has become a pressing need at this moment. The third is the impact on the economic activities. continued reliance on imports under the circumstance of resource price hike will only lead to unnecessary outflow of national wealth. So in order to address these three challenges I mentioned in the previous page, METI has positioned the creation of a circular economy market as a part of growth strategy. And we are considering our policy actions comprehensively and implementing initiatives across the entire product life cycle, aiming to establish a growth-oriented resource autonomous economy. Among the several policy targets, the first is product design and manufacturing. You can find in the top of this sheet. And we are facilitating recycling and expand the use of recycled materials. Second is service. We will consider necessary measures to foster sound development of e-commerce, including sharing, subscription, reuse, and others. The third is recycling. In order to achieve supply of recycled resources with high and uniform quality, we will facilitate the transformation of the waste industry into resource supply industry through support to R&D for advanced sorting and recycling technologies, and building and information sharing platforms for sharing material information among business entities. In order to realize a circular economy, we believe that it is essential to make our efforts through a Trinity approach. These three, cooperation among industry, government, and academia, investment support, and regulatory review and reform. And regarding cooperation among industry, government, and academia, it's true that resource circulation has a limitation when pursued by the individual companies alone. In order for resource circulation to be carried out sustainably and continuously, it is indispensable to improve economic rationality through stakeholders' collaboration and to carry out regional cooperation, particularly for collection and recycling stage. From such perspective, METI and the Ministry of the Environment and established cooperative frameworks named Circular Partners, with participation of economic organizations, private companies, local government, universities, and others. And this framework has already grown to include over 700 participants. Within this framework, participants had been discussed various issues needed to promote the social implementation of circular economy initiatives. And regarding investment support, it is expected that recycled materials such as plastics will lack in the future as circular economy expands. Therefore, we will support relevant technologies from R&D phase to demonstration project phase toward the expansion of recycled material supply. As an example, we launched a 3-year support program with the volume of 10 billion Japanese yen at annual basis since the last fiscal year. This program supports R&D and demonstration projects and equipment investment related to environmentally friendly manufacturing, which is contribute to extension of product lifespans and ensuring ease of recycling. Regarding regulatory review and reforms, we intensively reviewed the existing legal frameworks and discussed the form of new rules with the purpose of shifting our emphasis from the Venus industry, the current emphasis, to the resource circulation intensive policy based on cooperation between the arterial industry and the venous industry. As a result, we have amended the Resource Efficiency Promotion Act to reflect such regulatory reviews and reform. So now I skipped presentation and in the page 7 through 10, and due to time constraint, and it's provide further details on this three pillars of our circular economy and policy that are expansion as explained in the page 6. And I will please review them later. I have briefly outlined Japan's policy framework today. This is a sector where the policy is dynamically moving. So I hope today's my presentation serves as a starting point for your understanding of Japan's policy. With that, I conclude my remarks. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koji. So let's move on to the panel discussion today. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much and welcome back to the this panel discussion. So we would like to start the panel discussion. I will be moderating this session. I'm Tetsuya Nomoto from the Mitsubishi Research Institute. And thank you to our panelists for joining us today, even with your busy schedule. So we have the Miss Wen-Yu from the London, and Dr. Witchuda from the Bangkok, and Mr. Fusanori from the Hanoi, Vietnam, and also it's Mr. Koji, and I is staying in Tokyo. So it's great that we can bring together perspective from the Europe, ASEAN, and Japan. So three key regions for the circular economy. So I'm really looking forward to giving the insight you will share. So in this session, our discussion will move step by step. So we begin to the kind of the crisis of the growing resource constraint under the global fragmentation. And then we turn to the opportunity that can arise by turning risk into the demand creation and market design. And finally, we consider importance of the cooperation, how shared system and international rules can enable sustainable circulation across the borders. I will later come back to this kind of three elements in the kind of closing session. So, but before we begin, let me share just a few quick housekeeping rules. So since many of the panelists are joining remotely, so I will invite the panelists to respond in turn. So I would like to kindly ask each of you to limit your remarks to around 3 or 4 minutes, because due to the almost 20 minutes delayed right now. So it's and also, if you would like to add a comment, as a panelist, kind of use the raise a hand function, and I will bring you in the coming conservation. So we will also take some questions from the audience later, if possible. Due to time constraint, we may not be able to address all of them. However, we will do our best to cover representative ones. So thank you very much for your cooperation. So it's for now, let us start with first round regarding crisis. First, I would like to ask Dr. Witchuda. So let me start with a regional view. So in the context of the deepening geopolitical fragmentation, so what do you see the greatest risk to resource security within ASEAN regions?
Yeah, I think I have also show in a little bit of my presentations of how the industry here is look like, that we are heavily dependent on the virgin materials. And I think a lot of our infrastructure also not built to take in the circular resources as well. So I think with this over dependence, and especially with a lot of shifting now from we could see that the shift from the fossil fuel to rare earth, that also our colleague has mentioned, and when it changed of this, it's also kind of like changed the geographic dependence as well. So now the people, the countries with a lot of the rare earth also maybe have more leverage than the countries with have the fossil fuel. But I think we already start seeing in ASEAN. I think some of our country has also minerals. Like Indonesia has a lot of resources, but we still need to rely on the technology to extract and to use those resources. So some of the time maybe it's not very resource efficient, and I think we actually a lot of our countries coming agricultural based. So we feel that we have abundant resources, but agricultural resources, but we just use it. We don't look at it as alternative resources as well. So we still use the mainstream resources. So we over dependent on that and that way in our structures. Well, actually, we also, I think, in ASEAN countries, we also have a lot of foreign-owned OEM, and so in this part, we usually it's decision making from abroad. So we know also that a lot of companies need to comply with the global standards and then global new directives on products. So that's make them need to find like the way to incorporate. Maybe they need more recycling content. They need to decide differently, and they need to comply with the new compliance. So it's becoming a burden for industry to leap forward in this capacity. And I think we see also in terms of policy is that I can see that when it comes to we talk about circular economy, but when it comes to something that is sometimes people reduce it to only plastic waste or recycling problems, and it go into environmental in the ministry that take care of environmental issues instead in the ministry that doing the economic issues. So when these two are not becoming like one, so they just separately solving the problems that in their plate. So that's why transformation in terms of the systematic transformation is still have a lot of gap that for us to reach there. So.
Witchuda. So you point out systematic transportation is important. Also, it's ASEAN region is a kind of the over dependence, and also is due to the manufacturing is a country side. You need to follow up the standards or the compliance. So it's quite important for your region. So thank you very much. So next is I'd like to ask is Fusanori. So it's from the perspective of the ASEAN International Organization. So it's how do these global resource competition dynamics translate into the uncertainty?
Thank you very much. The question's a very, very challenging topic. In the sense, during my presentation, I just simply say that every businesses former recycler is struggling to receive some certain amount of the quality waste, good quality of the waste. So this is a simply thing, but that is very, very important. And due to increase the uncertainty, so then our colleagues are already mentioned that's the price of the commodity is soaring now. So then it may cause some challenge as well as the opportunity. So in the sense of the opportunity, of course, that many small and medium businesses has some opportunity to get into these businesses. But the challenge is also we need to consider that some illegal activities also emerging due to the soaring the price of the commodities. So we should consider the necessary regulation, as well as during my presentation I already mentioned the incentive, how to provide the certain amount of the recyclables to the formal businesses. So that is we should consider in the case by case of the countries, but that is challenging. Maybe I should stop here. Thank you.
Very much is Fusanori. Yeah, you point out the incentive. So for actually it's a formal accelerating the formal recycler is quite important. Yeah, thank you very much. And next is Mr. Koji. So it's turning to Japan situation. So how our resource constraint is kind of shaping the competition in the, especially for the carbon neutral industry, such as battery, semiconductor, or even in the renewable energy.
Thank you very much. As I said, basically Japan is has very, very few resources for any resources. So for Japan, it's resource restraint constraint is any time it's a kind of issue to be discussed, to be considered in the government. So now, if you to respond on these issues, of course we have to seek our supply. But supply is quite limited, and not only Japan but also other countries makes increase their demand. So competition is becoming grower and grower now. So this is an aspect to have to that we have to proceed our recycle our circular economy. To respond to such risks, and not only battery or other semiconductor, but we have to think more other by many products for recycling industrial and the circular economy, I think. So now we are tackling with these issues. They are very, very with many approach, as I said. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Koji, yeah, especially I really agree with Japan is also facing the resource constraints. So now it's a METI having several approaching is giving the solution, even including the circular economy side. So thank you very much. So lastly is Miss Wen-Yu some, and finally it's a European side I would like to ask. So how have resource constraint being framed both as a matter of the strategic autonomy and as also is a driver for the circular economy?
Yes, thank you. I think that the answer is partially included in the question, but I think in Europe, when we talk about the circular economy, one of the biggest narratives at the moment for why we need the circular economy is around strategic autonomy. The fact that Europe is worried about energy security and material security, but also want to achieve very ambitious climate targets at the same time that will effectively entail heavy mineralization. So resource constraints from the perspective of strategic autonomy is all about being aware of dependencies, diversifying supply, reshoring, onshoring, or friendshoring, the kind of facilities, infrastructure, and technology that is required for circularity. And there's also other policies that look at how do you have more circular design, how do you capture more value at home, how do you create more durability, how do you create data layers such as the digital product passports that we're seeing in batteries? If I can be a bit provocative though, I think if we take a step back, Europe has always been concerned about energy and material security. This is just the latest iteration. For the longest time, we've been concerned about being reliant on oil from the Middle East. Then we get concerned about relying on solar panels from China. And then for a while, it's reliance on gas from Russia. There has always been this inevitable struggle that something has to give. You can't have perfect climate ambition and perfect energy security and perfect material security and perfect industrial policy that drives economic growth and innovation. You cannot optimize for everything at the same time. And so my provocative thought is, whether it is for Japan or ASEAN, it is hard to imagine a very integrated world in the last few years. But in the long arch of history, there has never been a moment where the global human society is more integrated. And so in the short timeline, we are fragmented. In a very, very long timeline, we are inevitably integrated. And so the question becomes, how do we have these regional infrastructure initiatives that work and accelerate circularity, but still maintain global collaboration, from my perspective?
Much is Wen-Yu. So it's yeah, I really, how can I say, it's a kind of impression about you mentioned about we cannot optimize all issue or resources about in the same time. So it's maybe we need to tackling about each issue in about it's a kind of the international cooperation efforts. So thank you very much. So it's I just quickly I try to summarize about this round. Is yeah, you mentioned about the over dependence. Also, it's capacity gaps. Also having also not only for the circular economy, but also it's a carbon neutrality policy. It's very, very fragmented. So it's regarding ASEAN region. So it's Fusanori mentioned it's how can I say approaching the demand surge and the quality. Quality is quite important. Is accelerating the formal recyclers. So, and also it's Japan. It's yeah, we need to compete. Global race is already started for the kind of the risk and the volatility. We need to, how can I say, adopt is a kind of a thing. So saying is maybe it's this kind of crisis is not for the regional level, so it is shared and escalating across all of us. So it's this kind of point underlines the resource security challenge are not isolated, and also is they are shared and escalating. So this sense of the agency forms the foundation for our next discussion. So how to turn these risks into opportunity side? I'd like to ask the opportunity for kind of thing. So it's, this round is I'd like to start for the Wen-Yu. So Europe is having taken some step to connecting for the corporate demand with policy support. So could you share how these two elements have worked together to build a real market?
Sure, yeah. So I think the European playbook when it comes to driving circularity is very similar to the playbook when it comes to energy transition. One of the first things that Europe likes to do is to set clear mandates that companies and organizations must buy certain things, must purchase certain things. So Europe, for example, has mandated recycling content. That compulsory demand that is created as a result of that market pull mechanism means you will have more demand to offtake recycled content. The second key place infrastructure and data. Europe is, again, very good at this. The digital product passport initiative is one of the most advanced in the world. It lets corporations and supply chains get visibility of what important conversation that is needed to invest in a supply chain, to invest in businesses, and to invest in infrastructure. And lastly is the very, very mature financing landscape. We often say there's like a gap in finance to invest in some of this infrastructure and this innovations, and that is true. But Europe is far ahead in thinking about the blended finance approach, the guarantees, and the role that the public sector can play. So these are the typical playbook that Europe uses, and it's not anything different from, let's say, for example, incentivizing EV cars or incentivizing solar and wind. It's the same playbook for incentivizing circularity.
Much is a Wen-Yu. So you point out the kind of the, how can I say, it's creating the off-taker to the recycled materials. And also you mentioned about the kind of digital passport, digital product passport is a kind of sharing the information. And also is you mentioned, point out the financing, is a financing gap for that. And also is I know is Europe is a kind of the combined the carbon neutral and circular economy regulation policy side is to accelerate two of the same issues. So thank you very much. So next is I'd like to ask the Witchuda. So regarding for the ASEAN ASEAN countries. So expanding the use of recycled material is still challenging. So is from your perspective, what kind of the incentive are most critical to make this shift possible?
Yes, I think coming from that, last week I just have the Thailand EU workshop on PPWR and ESPRs, and one of the content we're talking about is a recycled content that has to be in the products that you have to design in the future. I think for that is one of the driver for manufacturer, because manufacturer doesn't want to manufacturing many type of products. They just want to have one product that they can send to all over the world. So for that, it means that the incentive for them is that if they have this, a lot of them look up to the EU directives, try to comply with it. And that is also the job of us as to help them to comply with those. And I think what we have in here is that they need support on traceability, because the infrastructure, we don't have much. Luckily, we also have help from Japan. MTEC is one of the main trainer for Chem Sherpa, which is the program that the Japanese company used for the chemical disclosure in the products. And I know that METI is now, Japan is developing something that's sort of like the digital product passport that also in that I think we also have a lot of company. We train more than 1,000 companies a year to know these programs and how to use the software for them to be able to show what their product is safe, and then when they export it. And I think when you mentioned about the digital product passport, as far as for me, incentive is one thing, and infrastructure need to be there for them to do it, or else people just choose the easy way. And I think if we can do that, and plus another thing I want to mention, not only to have the data and then traceability, but the know-how and infrastructure for them to have the safe treatment of those recycling content. We want everyone to connect it, and I think that's the thing, the basic thing we need, that we want is that all the materials we share, because I imagine the world in the future is that we share material flow all over the world. It should be safe from the beginning, and that infrastructure needs to be put for them to have to be able to do those in terms of using the materials again and again. Thank you.
It's a Witchuda. Yeah, it's actually it's ASEAN. It's a kind of the global factory. So it's a meaning you need to follow up. It's a EU directive, and also it's a follow up as kind of the global company. It's try to using about the recycle contents of the material. So it's a kind of the platform you mentioned about the infrastructure for sharing the information. So quite important, I think. Thank you very much. So next is I'd like to ask Mr. Koji. So Japan has introduced measures such as green procurement and emission trading is well kind of the carbon neutral side. So how do you see Japan supporting the ASEAN material by using this kind of demand side policy? So maybe Dr. Mitsubishi is also mentioned about some support for the training program. So yeah.
For this new product market creation is quite important. So now we are focusing on kind of mandate measures to use recycling resources. And we are, of course, we have introduced green procurement law and other market creation measures. So I guess we have some, of course, experience of kind of legal implementation and other programs. So we can support maybe the ASEAN countries to kind of to transport or to move our expenses to ASEAN countries and or our technologies. And with basically our Japan, the ASEAN cooperation, we will need this will be implemented not only by Japan government basis, needs some involvement of private companies, because some technologies or some know-how is basically owned by private companies. So we have to jointly or cooperatively and jointly with cooperation with ASEAN countries, and with not only with government but also with jointly with government and private companies. And so far, we have Japan has many experiences on cooperation, not only in the green transformation issues in other areas. So we can utilize such kind of experiences cooperation with ASEAN. Thank you.
Koji, yeah, it's actually is a METI is a kind emphasize is a kind of the how can you say it's sharing the experience. It's a meaning the knowledge sharing and also capacity building for the ASEAN region, not only for the technology but also you mentioned about the regulation and the policy. So kind of the harmonizing the Japan ASEAN policy is quite accelerating for the circular economy, both countries, both regions. So thank you very much. So lastly is Mr. Fusanori. So from the perspective is maybe if possible is a local industry side is what do you see the main opportunity emerging as market for recycling and circular economy expand?
Thank you very much. I have already discussed during my presentation. Yes, I explained about the case in Malaysia and the Philippines of the automotive dismantlers. So actually, we need to think about what's the recycling business in ASEAN. So compared to the high income developed countries, so still many recyclers are working as a so-called labor intensive. So in that sense, the capacity training, although that's the example I already explained, two companies in Malaysia and Philippines, has a good technical support from the Japanese company as well as the Japanese government, like a JICA program. So far now, although the case is very limited, but the good practices which I mentioned is really the support from the Japanese corporation. So it is very helpful to understand what is the technical so-called standard for the workers there. And actually, the informal sector, when we look at the informal sector, so informal sector, just to be honest, we can say these are the family business, so-called family business. For example, in the automotive, so one family can dismantle one car in a day. So then they will make their living cost. They will get the money for the living cost. So this is somehow a dominance of the informal sector, we can say. So what is the challenges? As I already mentioned, automotive sales is dramatically increased. So then we will need much more the capacity for the dismantling in the coming 5 or 10 years. And then it is very fragile to rely only on the informal. So maybe we can consider some technical guidelines or technical cooperation, and the suitable regulation, so-called, and to gather such family businesses to make be a business operation. So although that's the situation is varied in country in the ASEAN, But through we already have good practices from the support of the Japanese company. So how we can make use of that cases? So that is a challenging we are facing now. Yeah, I will stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fusanori. Yeah, because you are conducting the field research. Thank you very much for sharing the actual situation you facing the problem. Also, it's a very, how can I say, it's an idea for the kind of the industry guideline. It's a standard. It's also effective in this. So thank you very much. So it's next is a 3 round. However, it's due to the time constraint, it's only the 10 minutes. So it's the last round. I'd like to ask the corporation. So maybe you already mentioned is some of the essence of your today's discussion. However, including the last message for the audience, please mention about what is the opportunity for the corporation in ASEAN region to either your country or your region, Japan or Europe. So I'd like to start. I'd like to ask Fusanori, you are first.
Yes, thank you very much. Just a quick, that's our area. It is our honor to be here listed as a corporation organization for the ASEAN-Japan Circular Economy Initiative, which was established in 2023 on the commemorative of the 50th years anniversary of the Japan and ASEAN. So under that such an initiative, so we have a lot of opportunity through the local and also that the Japanese company coming here and to strengthen their activities related to the circular economy. So we will make our efforts to how to combine such these efforts from the Japanese efforts as well as the ASEAN countries' efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fusanori. So next is Dr. Witchuda.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that I want to point out that I haven't included in my presentation or discussion before, is that in order for us to also comply or to conform with this, also a lot of requests from industry side about laboratory testing to kind of confirm that they are safe, confirm that they are have the doesn't have the harmful substance or all those global regulations also. So I think there's two things that I want to put out is that in ASEAN and Japan, I think we have some activities already. We can have something like the lab capacity building in terms of the testing, because these are also one of the the thing that the hurdle that a lot of the company here has to pay a lot to comply. It's the compliance burden for all the companies in these regions. And if we can share kind of like the resource and result or like reference materials or something to speed up all these compliance. And in ASEAN, I think we also should think about harmonized standards, certain standards, and I think that would actually help from the start that when they import the materials or they make the products or whatever to anywhere, that it's actually if we have the same standard that every countries know that if it come from ASEAN, it's safe and it's reliable and it has the standard that all of us are helping shaping together. I think that's the thing with the leverage, and we have a lot of cluster that have the similar issue and the similar industry, and I think that should be able to be shared across the region, and Japan can be our big brothers to help us in this, because we also have a lot of Japanese owned companies, and we doing an OEM for the Japanese company as well. So it might start from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Witchuda. So next is Koji.
Thank you very much. And as Fusanori-san said, we have already a cooperative initiative between Japan and ASEAN, Japan-ASEAN circular economy initiatives. So we can use this kind of frameworks to implement our cooperation. And about one more, and if focus another cooperation, one potential area is kind of standard. Japan is so far actively involved in the discussion in the ISO. ISO TC 323. We have Japan is it's involved in the discussion in the ISO. So I guess I think we can have a potential to cooperate in this discussion in the ISO. Thank you.
So last but not least is Wen-Yu. So please go ahead.
I think Japan and ASEAN can learn from the success and shortcomings of the European approach. It's very logical to start with data and digital infrastructure. Then you remove guesswork, you create certainty. But it's also important to do this in a way that is limited, that is strategic, so you don't just drown the supply chain in compliance. I also think that in the conversation we have today, geopolitics is so important. But for us to have the right timing and for us to get to a critical mass, Mr. Fusanori talked about quality of feedstock input. We need critical mass. That means we should be thinking about collaboration, thinking about trade. We don't just regulate for origin, we regulate for quality. There needs to be a lot more collaboration. Otherwise, we're going to face a medium-term shortfall that we're never going to get past. And so I think we can learn from success, but also shortcomings of the European approach.
Wen-Yu. Yep. So yeah, all about panelists, I really appreciate it. It's a good conversation, good discussion. So I'd like to try to summarize it briefly about today's discussion, and also including this webinar. So we began the crisis. It's a starting point of the discussion. So recognizing the shared and escalating risk is quite effective. So we then move to opportunity side is seeing that those risks can be reframed in the new market. And lastly is when ended with collaboration, the foundation that are opportunity to enjoy and scale. So I really, how can I say, I'd like to move on. Especially for the Witchuda mentioned about the laboratory test. Is a kind of the collaborative harmonizing the standards with the Koji is also mentioned about that. So this is a kind of the new opportunity for the collaboration in ASEAN and Japan region. Also I try to coming back, I mentioned because it's this kind of this stage for what I call is three C's, is a crisis, chance, and corporations. So now is a time to act over three, to recognize is a crisis, to size a chance, and also to the commit to the cooperation across the borders. So only by acting of the all three can we transform today's constraint into the tomorrow's resilience and growth. So this is a kind of the summary about me as a moderator. So again, thank you very much. Your busy schedule is coming to this webinar. So thank you very much. And also, lastly, on behalf of all panelists, let me thank you for your attention and active participation. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Mr. FUJII Norimasa, General Manager of the Center for Policy and the Economy, Mitsubishi Research Institute, for the official closing remark. So thank you.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I'm FUJII. So thank you very much for joining us to attend this seminar despite your busy schedule today. And today, we discussed a strategic approach to strengthen supply chains. And we heard the latest initiative for the circular economy based on, as well as the latest data and information. And for the panelists, I really appreciate for you to share your insights and valuable experiences. So I'd like to extend my great appreciation to you all. And all the panelists said that the resources and the economy, environment, the issues. Now, there are unprecedented uncertainties in businesses. But those uncertainties pose not only risks, but also the opportunities for our business activities. I think that was the main messages for the panel discussion. And then also, the panelists shared some approaches and solutions to address those uncertainties about the cross-border as well as that the regional collaboration. I hope that you'll be able to make most use of those insights and then what you have learned from those discussions. So now I'd like to move on to the closing. So with that, we conclude today's seminar. And on the chat, we posted a URL for the web questionnaires. And for today's materials, for those who answer to the questionnaires, will receive the URL to download today's presentation materials. So once again, thank you very much for your attendance.